Hello, and thanks for attending our talk today on ChatGPT plugins and the future of enterprise AI agents. My name is Chris Latimer. I am the general manager of streaming here at DataStax, and I am joined with a very good friend and former colleague of mine. Darko, why don't you introduce yourself and kick us off?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm a founder and CEO of Poly API. So today in this talk, we're going to introduce you to AI agents. So what an AI agent is basically a model that uses APIs on behalf of a user to perform actions or tasks. And so you can think of this as the ChatGPT using plugins as a way to access APIs to serve its users and to be able to perform actions on their behalf. Now, what makes AI agents really unique is that they have to autonomously both select the API they want to use and use it at real time. So unlike traditionally, where developers first build an application and then users use it at a later point in time. Some big predictions that we're making here is that AI agents will proliferate drastically in various domains. So we already know that BART is around the corner, Anthropic, Meta, Elon Musk's X, and more. Now, what's really going to accelerate this is when you can actually start fine-tuning some of these base models. I think we're going to see a turbocharged proliferation of these models. And AI agents are expected to generate a huge increase in GDP because they're going to open up the ability to really apply this AI to all kinds of consumer and enterprise use cases. So we think there's going to be a huge advantage to being an early mover because with AI, it's really hard to replicate how it works behind the scenes. So the sooner you get ahead of the equation, you have the opportunity to be the best AI agents out in the market. And today, we're going to talk to you about how enterprises are going to have to optimize their APIs and data to be able to take advantage of AI agents.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So maybe it will help to start off with an example. Here's one that is probably familiar to most people. Let's imagine that you work for somebody like United or Delta or American or Emirates or any of the airlines that are out there, and you built this web experience and this mobile experience, and you put a lot of time and effort into optimizing your API calls so that they're fast and that you take a user through a very linear experience. So in this case, you're going to search for flights. You're going to get back the list of flights that match your criteria. And only then, once you have that list of flights, can you go in and do things like, show the seat map because I don't want to sit in the middle seat. One of the biggest things that's going to change as you're working with AI agent interfaces is that you're going to lose that control. So imagine now that you're United and you want to support your users that want to book flights through ChatGPT. Well, now the user can say things like, hey, book me this flight, but I don't want to sit in the middle seat. And your API that used to be optimized for this linear flow now needs to be able to support whatever usage pattern people put in. And it's going to be very hard to predict that. And we'll talk a little bit about how we'll do that from a data and an API perspective. But before we jump into that, let's take a look at the anatomy of a ChatGPT plugin. So these are actually pretty simple. At the end of the day, it's mostly an API call and a wrapper. So there's an AI plugin.json that's going to tell ChatGPT where to find your API. You're going to have an open API specification that's going to give a very clear description that ChatGPT will use to understand what these parameters are for, when I should use this API. And you'll give it a number of endpoints, usually a smaller number of endpoints with fewer parameters. And then there's this concept called a prompt token size, which is a little bit of a nuanced concept. You can, in a way, think of it as the length of the conversation that you can have with ChatGPT. And every time that somebody is making a statement or a question to ChatGPT and sort of refining what they're working on, it's adding to that prompt token size. And so if you hand back a really, really large payload, you're going to eat into that token size. Eventually, you'll get an error if you exceed that. So at the end of the day, you have sort of a big challenge in your hands because you want to create an API that is comprehensive, that can give people back all the data that they want, but you can't give back too much data so that you overload ChatGPT. And this is where you'll have to start rethinking your data strategy in light of the requirements of AI agents. And that's where this pattern of derived data will become very handy. The idea behind derived data is that we create very purpose-built denormalized views that will allow you to get access to the data that you want and just the data that you want. And then you use event streaming and an event-driven architecture to keep that data continuously updated. So in the case of an airline, you have passengers that are customers that are booking flights, they're making seat assignments, and every time one of those events happens, you want to take that event, you want to process it, and you want to push down an updated view of the data so that your API can retrieve just the data that it wants, and that data is always fresh. And that's really the idea behind derived data. And we'll take a look at this in a demo, along with kind of the end-to-end flow of creating a ChatGPT plugin. So your strategy is as simple as get ready, get set, go. We're going to start off by looking at your data strategy. So how would you get your data ready for an API that is going to be consumed easily by something like ChatGPT? We'll look at Poly API, which is going to help you to massage that API and to craft an API that is just right for this particular use case. And then Darko is going to walk us through an actual working ChatGPT plugin so you can see it all in action. So with that, let me jump into the first part of our demo, which is DataStax Astra. And so DataStax Astra has two parts to it. It's going to have what we call Astra DB, which is our database part. It's going to have Astra Streaming, which is our event streaming and event stream processing capabilities. Now, it'll be hard to do justice to this in the short talk that we have today. So I'm going to go kind of quick, and we can always do a follow-up with you directly if you want to see this in more action. So the idea behind the Astra streaming piece, this is where you're going to take all the events that are happening in your organization and you're going to process them. And Astra streaming is going to let you pull in events from Apache Pulsar, Apache Kafka, JMS, RabbitMQ directly. If you have applications that use those protocols, you can pull those events directly into Astra streaming. If you don't have those protocols and you're using something like database events, for example, we also have sources. And so a source is going to let you point Astra streaming at a database like MySQL, like Oracle, like Postgres, like so many other options. Basically, if you're using something, chances are we have a source plugin for it. And we'll be able to capture those events as they're happening. You can then take those events, process them using either stateless or stateful processing. And then ultimately you can sync this data into the database side of Astra, which is Astra DB, which is what we've done here. So ahead of this demo, I've created a table, and our table is called flight. Oops. And maybe make that a little bit bigger so that you can see it. And what
Chris,
you'll see
sorry,
here,
we're not seeing you typing anything. We just see it on syncs.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you are. Now we can see it.
So here we have the database side. So we've created this table called flights, and flights is going to have all the things that you would expect it to have. It's going to have an origin, a destination. It's going to have a booking link, a flight number, everything that you would need from a ChatGPT plugin to be able to actually book this flight. And one of the nice things with Astra Database is that it's going to automatically give an API for this data. So you can use a REST API, you can use a GraphQL API. Today, the one that we're going to look at is REST. And I'm going to hand it over here to Darko, who is going to take our REST API and show you how to get that into the format needed for a ChatGPT plugin.
Great. And Chris, if you could just confirm that you see my Postman, I'll pick it up from there.
I do not. I do.
Awesome. So the first thing we have to do with Poly is we have to teach this API to Poly. And so the approach that we've taken for training Poly on APIs is to basically show us the API working. Now, in the interest of time, I've done some prep work here, but just to set your expectations, everything I'm going to show you took me about an hour end to end to do. So we'll make this call. We see that the API works, and we'll just notice that it has, some information here like seats, flight number, price, origin, etc. Now, once we use the API, Poly now can actually go ahead and leverage this API. And so we'll see that Poly's been trained on this API, that it gave it a name of flight search, that it set it in the context of Astra DataStax flights. It gave it the following description. It sees that it expects the following arguments. And this is all based off of how we used it in Postman, that Poly learned this thing. And with the help of AI, it named it, classified it, and gave it a description. So once we have this, we could technically expose this API directly to ChatGPT. But I decided to take an extra step and kind of optimize this API a little bit more to be more friendly to the AI agent that's making a determination to use it at real time. So instead, what I did is I wrote a custom function leveraging our AI assistant to help me figure out what functions to use. And what this custom function does is it basically just changes the interface to expect an origin airport, a destination airport, a date of travel, and a time zone that the user is in. And so with this information, we can actually search the data that Chris gave us through that REST API, but we have to account for time zone. So rather than expecting the AI to do these conversions on its own, we wanted to help it out a little bit and just let all the data be represented in the time zone of the user. So first thing what we do here is we actually leverage ChatGPT behind the scenes, or OpenAI, I should say. And what we do is we first sanitize the input from the AI agent to basically say that, hey, no matter how time zone is passed, is it MT, Denver, Eastern European, whatever, we can basically take it and ask the AI to normalize it to the standard time zone convention, which is expected by the underlying functions. Now, the underlying functions that do the time conversion basically massage the user's date into a 24-hour window representing their day. So behind the scenes, we use Zulu for querying, but on the front end, it's all represented and interfaced in the user's time zone. So that's just a simple example of the types of optimizations you might want to do to make it that much easier for the AI to leverage your APIs. And then here we do a function call based on the training we did to Poly. We actually make this call to retrieve the data. We define a new interface. And in this case, it's just a little bit leaner, but efficiency, like Chris mentioned, matters. And it's a drastic differentiator in how long of a conversation you have and how fast and how successful the AI agent is going to be if you normalize the data to just the minimum set that's necessary for the AI agent to be able to use. And then here we do the final conversion to generate a new array, and we return back an array of flight options. Now, I've also written a quick test app that just basically invokes that one custom function that I've built and, by the way, deployed to the Poly server. So that custom function, you can think of it as Lambda running on Poly. And then here we basically invoked it, and I could see that we have our new data structure coming back. So now let's put it all together by building a ChatGPT plugin. So what we do for that is we have an endpoint here that you can use. You just need to provide a name, a subdomain URL, an icon representing it, a description to the AI agent to understand when to use this plugin, a description for the user. And then this is kind of the real innovation of Poly, is that you can hand select the set of functions that you want to be packaged into this plugin. So in my case here, I really only did two functions. I did our flight search that's optimized for AI, taking time zones into account, that custom function I showed you. And then I also used another function, which is just Twilio sending an SMS. So our AI agent will be able to just perform these two functions. So let's switch it over to the actual ChatGPT. And here, basically, I've gone ahead and installed this plugin already. We can see it in the plugin store here. We can see what I have installed as soon as it loads here. Give it just a split second. A little bit slow today. Anyways, I won't wait for, oh, there it is. So you can see flight search is installed. And then you can see that we have flight search enabled. And so now I've pre-written a query here that I can ask it, similar to what Chris was saying earlier today, where you basically say, hey, help me find a flight from Denver to the Sin City, June 16th. I'd like to ideally fly in the morning. What's the best option? And so to not a normally formatted query, because the AI agent has to interpret that Sin City is Las Vegas, it has to interpret the morning, and has to basically then propose me a best option. So you can see here that it's respecting my time. So even though the data is all in Zulu behind the scenes in UTC, you can see that it's actually working in my time zone, which is Denver time. So it found two flights for me, and then basically said, hey, these are their morning flights. And if you want other options or later in the day, let me know. And then also in our plugin, in the description, we encouraged it to always send that information to the user's phone. So the idea is that you can also guide the AI agent to basically take the next step. So you have that ability through the descriptions to kind of create that path for it. So in my case, I would like it to send it to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to Google Voice here. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab my phone number, which is right here. And then I will go ahead and switch back to the AI agent. And I'll just say something like, please send me the second flight. And so again, you can see how the AI agent is going to now understand that the second flight is the one that it denoted as number 2. And it's only going to send me that information. So really, it's able to interpret the data and kind of make these hops across APIs to tie them together to solve the user's use case. So we can switch back to Google Voice, and we can see that that second flight, 812, is the one that it sent me the information for. So with that demo, hopefully we showed you a total end-to-end of what it would look like to get your data ready, to prepare your APIs, to optimize them further, and then to actually generate that plugin and use it. So with that, I'd love to just switch over to our last slide here, which is a call to action for anyone who enjoyed this presentation. If you're excited by this advent of AI agents, and you want to go ahead and work with us to basically build your own plugin to showcase to your own enterprise what it would look like to get your data ready, to set up your APIs, and then to be able to execute those APIs, we'd love to work with you. We're both currently in a beta. And so, you have to just acknowledge that and account for that. But the good news is you'll have some real experts working with you to realize this. So we do only have 4 slots open left. It's going to be a limited beta program. So please reach out, and we hope you enjoy the call.
Yeah, only to echo what Darko said, we'd love to work with you. This is an exciting time for AI. This is growing extremely fast. ChatGPT reached, I think, 100 million users in the first 2 months. And this is the time in technology, if you've been working in technology for a couple of decades, we only see this like once a decade where you get this type of an opportunity to really lead your company into the forefront of sort of what's next. We'd love to be a partner with you. We'd love to help you with that. So with that, thank you all again for attending our talk today. We hope you enjoyed it. And you can reach out to us by emailing DataStax-poly, DATASTAX-POLY @datastax.com. That's going to go directly to Darko and me. It's not going to go to any salespeople. You're not going to get spam from it. It's just going to open a channel of communication directly with me and with Darko. And with that, thank you all for attending our talk, and have a great rest of the conference.